and he's almost trying to expose his position. He does finally get the hands locked. He's got him hooked in there, but he's so far forward, it's going to be hard for him to get the turn from this position. Williams reaches in and counters more or less by grabbing Hansen by the leg, and Hansen now is going to have to back off. Time is getting to be a factor. Williams hanging on to the leg, and Hansen trails 2-1. We have a stall warning going against Williams. And Hansen able to power him back to the mat, but time is getting to be a factor. Hansen trailing 2-1.
Hansen's not going to get the job done here if he can't get him over, Ben.
We're down to 10 seconds. Remember, one stall warning has already been issued. Will there be another one? I don't think so.
Andy Hansen loses. Or wait a minute, is there still time? The buzzer did not go off. Or did it? It is over. It is over. 2-1. Match is over. Andy Hansen does not win for the Oakley Plainsmen, but it is Troy Williams from Lincoln. Somewhat of an upset a little bit, Ben.
Well, you know, looking at it from a regional point of view, I'm sure that it is an upset in terms of the Oakley Plainsmen. But Troy Williams from Lincoln, Kansas, may very well have been their first state champion ever also.
All right, folks, we'll go to the award stand to take a look at the fourth place finisher at the 135-pound weight class, Eric Pence of the Atwood Buffaloes. The consolation champion is Shane Oakes of the Hoxie Indians. Second place finisher in a wild championship match, Todd Plummer of Oakley. And the 1989 135-pound weight champion with a 6-5 win over Plummer, Butch Kearns of Plainville. Well, Ben, in terms of a team title, big match coming up now, 145 pounds. Travis Morin from Plainville going up against Shawn Root of Royal Valley. Root comes in with a record of 25-0, unblemished. Morin comes in with a mark of 24-1.
I don't think that's a significant difference in the record.
So a major match coming up here.
The match is underway. And Shawn Root of Royal Valley is in the dark blue uniform. Travis Morin sweeps in, gets in deep on the single. Can he get the elevation? No. Root races out.
Root has scored a lot of points in the tournament. He won his first match 7-0, 16-7 in the quarterfinals, and 18-2 in the semifinals. Meanwhile, Morin did the same thing, 16-10, 11-5, and into the championships.
On a good counter move, Morin comes around behind, but they're out of bounds. The scoring doesn't count. Good down head-on position. And Root gets in deep, or excuse me, Morin gets in deep on Root. Good penetration on the single, but Shawn Root comes across the top and counters by grabbing the ankle. Still scoreless. First period action, 145-pound weight class. Travis Morin of Plainville backs off. And Shawn Root takes a look at his coach in this scoreless first period. Now Root gets the penetration. He's in deep on a single. But Travis Morin is able to counter out and tries a whip over. Root felt the pressure coming. And Root comes right back in. Rather, Morin does. And Root counters out by grabbing the ankle. We have a stalemate.
Neither wrestler getting much of an advantage here in the first period on this match of the 145 pounds.
Root, a counter move as they go out of bounds. And a stall warning is issued against Travis Morin. Excuse me, the stall warning goes against Shawn Root of Royal Valley. Travis Morin in deep. Comes around behind and scores two. Has he scored two? No, he didn't get control. He did get control. There was a reversal. It's 2-2.
A little quick flurry there, Ben, late in the first period.
Well, I thought it was a clean shot, Rich, and Travis Morin did get the takedown, but he didn't hang on long as Shawn Root was able to get a reversal. We go into the second period, 2-2.
So we're just about where we were when the match started, Ben, with instead of 6 minutes, 4 minutes of wrestling action left.
Root gets in deep. Morin countering it out. Morin trying to come over the top in the maroon uniform. The match is tied. Good shuck move on the part of Morin. He comes around behind but doesn't score, and then Root comes in deep on the leg. He's got the good penetration, but working so close to the edge of the mat. And now, yes, the takedown goes to Shawn Root of Royal Valley, and it is now 4-2.
Yes, it is 4-2 with a little over a minute left.
But the scoreboard clock may disagree with us. We think it is 4-2.
They agree with us now on the official scoreboard, and you saw it on the screen, 4-2. There's a good look at the official as he stares down at the wrestler and wanting them to get ready to go.
Travis Root, bottom side.
That looks like a move that'll end up in a stalemate if we don't watch it, huh?
Shawn Root working from the top has a 4-2 lead. Travis Morin trailing in the maroon uniform. And Shawn Root working well with a leg ride, tries a Turk, and Travis Morin tries to spin in, but Shawn Root is able to counter. Working from the top, and Root in the blue uniform hangs on to the lead.
There's the coach in the corner. You can see rather intense. The assistant coach, I believe, right there. Royal Valley's Shawn Root doing a good job of riding here, Ben.
Really is. Now, there wasn't a lot of action, but with a 4-2 lead, Shawn Root wasn't about to be real floppy out there. On the choice in the third period, Shawn Root indicates to his coach he would like to be bottom side.
Well, he has the 2-point advantage, so now he can work either to come up with a reversal or just be cautious, I suppose. And again, Root has been warned. He's the only wrestler that's been warned for stalling in the match. Brad Fredrickson, coach of Plainville, you just saw him there up on his feet.
A little timeout for the shoelace. You know, you can trip on one of those things if they're not tied.
Brad Fredrickson, the young coach at Plainville, Kansas, sitting back down and settling in as this wrestler is going to go to work.
A sit-out switch and a power switch coming around. Shawn Root of Royal Valley has the good leverage in. He sets through on the switch, gets a little bit of a set through, and Travis Morin having a lot of trouble hanging on, and Root gets the reversal. Root scores two off of the reversal, but can he hang on? Travis Morin about to step through, and Travis Morin gets a reversal. Morin tries to whip Root back from the snapback. Root goes to the switch once again. A power switch right on the edge of the mat for Root. They don't score as they go out of bounds.
I think you're going to see, and I just watched the coach on the sideline over here, Brad Fredrickson. Not so sure he's not going to let Root up and try to go for the takedown. Root appears to be pretty slick on the bottom side.
Well, you know, he's one of these what we call wormy kind of a wrestler because you can't nail him down. He just turns a good move on your part into a bad move.
There's Fredrickson shouting instructions to his Plainville wrestler, Travis Morin. He is going to let him up.
You picked the strategy. And boy, I tell you, Root comes in and gets a good penetration and scores. He does score too. And the score is 7-6. It's 8-6 now. And Root is out in front, but Morin, working well on his feet, wants to tie it up with a takedown. Morin in a good position, and Root trying to counter out, has good leverage. Will we have a stalemate? We have a potentially dangerous situation, and it is a stalemate.
No doubt about it that Brad Fredericks in the corner for Plainville.
We are down.
Told his wrestler, let him up. You've got a better advantage on your feet going for the takedown.
And time is getting to be a factor. We are late in the third period. We have a stall warning and a point issued to Travis Morin.
The referee just issued the 1 point.
Root gets in deep, but can he get in there deep enough? He hangs on in a down, head-on position. Travis Morin trying desperately to come around to the side. And once again, we know that time is getting to be a factor, and Root steps across. It's a power move, a real power move on the part of Shawn Root. And look at the clock. We're down to 8 seconds, and I think Shawn Root is getting ready to be the champion, undefeated on the season.
Undefeated indeed. He is elated, as you see there. Shawn Root of Royal Valley, 26-0 on the year. A great champion, winning. He had his back against the wall late because it looked like his opponent Morin was coming back, but Root did get the job done. Shawn Root, Royal Valley, the champion, as the referee raises his hand at the 145-pound weight division. All right, we'll go now to the award stand at 140 pounds. As we get ready and set for that, the fourth place finisher at 140 pounds was Billy Hubley from southeast of Saline. And Gene Curry of Atwood was the consolation champion at 140 pounds. Second place goes to Andy Hansen of the Oakley Plainsmen, the 1989 140-pound champion. Troy Williams, Lincoln, 2-1 winner over Andy Hansen of the Oakley Plainsmen. There you see the wrestlers as they come up. Andy Hansen getting ready to step up there, the second place finisher, getting the medal awarded from the cheerleaders here at the state tournament in Hayes, and the champion steps to the top, Troy Williams from Lincoln. Well, Ben, we've reached the 152-pound weight class, and of the championship at 152 pounds will be a Steve Arnold with a record of 27-0 from Immaculata. He'll face from the Northwest Kansas League with a record of 23-1-1, Brad Van Pelt.
Rich, Arnold is a basic fundamental wrestler, very strong, very quick. Van Pelt of Oberlin is a thrower. He likes to hook up, and he'll take you from any position on the mat.
He's in the red uniform, Van Pelt, by the way. Arnold in the green.
And Arnold gets in deep on Van Pelt, gets in deep on the single, and has a chance to score the takedown, but does not yet have control. And does at this point in the match, however, and goes out in front 2-0 with a first period takedown.
There you see the score, 2-0, but Brad Van Pelt. Oakley in the Oberlin rather in the bottom position with a pretty intense look on his face.
Arnold in the green uniform working topside. Van Pelt trailing 2-0 in the red and gray uniform. On the stand-up, a power switch and a step across for Van Pelt. Caught him in the middle of the move and putting the squeeze on with the legs. Trying now, it is not a bar arm, it's a hammerlock. Van Pelt working behind. Tries to tie up Arnold's arm in his waist, which he does. The match is tied 2-2.
Arnold of Immaculata in the green in the bottom. Van Pelt on top, red and gray.
On a stand-up, Van Pelt sits through, and Arnold elevates Van Pelt. He's getting him in a dangerous position, trying for a backdoor escape. And Van Pelt trying to bridge out. He almost coughed up 4 points on the move, was able to settle, and now a throw on the part of Van Pelt, and that is exactly the kind of a move we were talking about. Van Pelt can throw him from anywhere. And we'll have a brief discussion about the scoring, because even we are not sure what the score is at this point.
Boy, I don't know, but Van Pelt did use that whip over, didn't he? They didn't give him the points, and they gave him an escape, Ben.
Well, that sort of is a way of dividing everything that happened and coming out with a positive scoring move. But we'll wait just a moment, folks. We really don't know at this point what the score is.
It'll go 3-2. 3-2, the score.
And Arnold in the green leg band and the green, uniform is out in front.
Explaining the call to the referee, to the coaching staff, Erickson from Oberlin.
3-2, Arnold in the lead. Van Pelt working topside, second period.
I'm thinking the score should be 4-3. Van Pelt with the lead.
Now Van Pelt puts a cradle on. He caught Arnold in a slow motion stand-up. He'll score 3. It's a good ride. He can hold him here the entire period.
All right, I did see the referee, Ben, come over and indicate that the score should be 4-3. Van Pelt, I believe, with the lead.
We'll have a chance to check the scoreboard here in a few moments. In the meantime, Van Pelt has the best kind of a ride, which is a cradle, and he scores 3 points with a near fall with it. Arnold sitting through, trying to elevate and get Van Pelt high. Van Pelt now comes back with a reverse, half Nelson, and has a chance to score more back points, and the count is going. On the board, it shows 7-3, Van Pelt in the lead.
That's right. Oh, Arnold gets the reverse, Ben. Slid right through and got the reversal.
7-5, second period action. Van Pelt working on the bottom now. He has a 7-5 lead. Tries for a stand-up. And now Arnold tries his own cradle, and Van Pelt is able to shake it loose and scores an escape. So he gets another point, but Arnold comes right back in, gets the deep penetration on the single, but hasn't scored yet with it. Van Pelt trying to lock up with a figure 4, head scissors around front, shakes Arnold loose, tries to step around behind, and does he whip him over? He gets around and does not score at the buzzer. It is 10-5, Van Pelt in the lead, and a whole bunch of neck throws out there. What a move for Van Pelt.
It really is. 10-5 the score. Evidently that is the correct score. 10-5, start the final period. And Arnold, unbeaten on the year, 27-0, Ben, is running to a buzzsaw on Van Pelt.
You can't trust a thrower like Van Pelt. He can get you from anywhere on the mat. Van Pelt braces, thinks about standing up and does. Spins in, but Arnold drops in on the leg. Van Pelt now tries a freestyle move and comes off to the side. and tries to whip Arnold over and gets him over and scores 2. On the reversal, Arnold showing signs of tired. Becoming tired. He's got his head down, and that's a real clue sometimes in wrestling. Van Pelt around front. He's going to try a throw, but he didn't need to do it. He gave up the points, and the score is now 12-7.
He really was going to try another power move.
Arnold in control, but he trails 12-7. In the green uniform, Van Pelt comes up standing again. Faces Arnold, but does not yet have the escape as Arnold moves in low on the ankle. Van Pelt steps across. Arnold lets loose. Van Pelt scores another escape point.
Makes it 13-7.
These wrestlers are getting tired. They're in slow motion now. Arnold shoots the move in. Van Pelt sneaks a look at the clock. Time is getting to be a factor. We are down to less than a half a minute in this contest.
Van Pelt has upped his lead. As you see the clock, less than 20 seconds remaining.
Van Pelt scores again on the takedown. He's got a big lead now, and time is definitely expiring. Under 10 seconds now in the final period.
Well, Ben, the Oberlin crowd is on their feet, and Brad Van Pelt has himself a state championship, a senior who came into this match 23-1-1. Gives Steve Arnold of Immaculata his first loss of the year. Van Pelt really got the job done. He's got to be elated, as you saw there. The referee raised his hand, and he goes over to his coach Erickson there, elated, gets the embrace. Brad Van Pelt, the champion at 152 pounds for the 1989 3-2-1A tournament. Brad Van Pelt from Oberlin. All right, we'll go over to the award stand. Fourth place finisher at 145 pounds, Scott Sloop of Silver Lake. Scott Sloop of Silver Lake. Consolation champion, Lee Hillman of Eureka. Second place finisher was Travis Morin of Plainville. And the 1989 Kansas 145-pound champion, Shawn Root from Royal Valley. So Root captures the championship, a 10-7 win over Travis Morin from Plainville. That sets us up for the 160-pound championship. We expect this one to be a dandy. Corey Scott, 27-0 for Plainville, going up against Mike Berkgren of Oakley with a record of 20-1. Berkgren's only loss of the year, we understand, came to the hands of Nick Peters, a 5A wrestler from Hayes High. So this ought to be a dandy match at 160 pounds. Berkgren in the yellow, and in the red, Corey Scott.
Early in the first period, of course, and it is 0-0. Corey Scott, another undefeated wrestler in the tournament. Berkgren and Scott, head-to-head, near the center of the mat.
We might mention that Berkgren is a defending state champion in the old weight classification of a year ago at 155 pounds in class 3-2-1A. So here's a wrestler trying to defend the championship.
He's being very cautious. The center of the mat is where he wants to be, and he is near the center. Corey Scott also being cautious. Berkgren reaches in, gets a good single, but they're on the edge of the mat, and they go out of bounds.
Berkgren, by the way, is related to the Oakley coach, his coach, Dale Samuelson, I understand.
It's an uncle-nephew relationship. That is true. The wrestler, Berkgren, is the nephew of the coach, Dale Samuelson.
All right. So you can see as Dale Samuelson has maybe a little extra, maybe just a little extra interest in this match as the coach, as you see him in a corner, giving a positive instruction to Berkgren. But a combined record, Ben, of 47-1 between these two wrestlers.
Berkgren and Scott being very, very careful. They're not stalling. They simply aren't risking an aggressive move. Berkgren tried to get in under the arm. Scott had other ideas. Scott in the maroon uniform. Berkgren tries to sweep in. He made a move at the leg.
Berkgren is looking for an opportunity to set up, maybe even for a power move.
With just a little bit of break in the action.
Referee's whistle went out on him, I think. He had to fix his whistle. Got to have a whistle when you're in this kind of situation.
Okay, time expires, Rich, at the end of the first period. It is scoreless, as you can tell by the action.
Well, they, as you said, Ben, were not stalling. They were both looking for where they wanted to be and what they wanted to do. Berkgren, actually, I think Corey Scott had the toss. He deferred to Berkgren.
Berkgren on the choice of position did take bottom side at the start of the second period. We have a leg wrestler, potentially dangerous as they got elevated in the air. And Corey Scott, the leg wrestler, ready to put the move on the stand-up for Mike Berkgren.
All right, Berkgren, defending state champion at the 155-pound class. That was the old weight classification.
Once again on the stand-up, Berkgren goes to the edge of the mat, but he's trying to isolate and peel. And his opponent, Corey Scott, takes him out of bounds. And actually, you might say they went out of bounds together.
Yes, they did. There you see Brad Fredrickson, the coach in the corner for Plainville. His team still in the chase for the team title. Oakley trying for a team championship as well. Atwood currently leads with 101.5 points. Plainville is next with 99.
Okay, Rich, the match continues here. It's 0-0, second period action. Berkgren gets pretty good elevation on Corey Scott. The officials talking about the type of defensive move that it was.
By the way, Ben, I believe this is a big in the area for Plainville. If Plainville loses this match, I think Atwood will be almost assured of a team championship. They'll be in a great position.
On a counter move, we have a potentially dangerous situation. And the referee alertly stopped in a picture of Coach Dale Samuelson looking on intently.
Looking right there. That's Dale Samuelson, his nephew. Berkgren wrestling in the bottom position. Hasn't been able to get away yet.
Samuelson on Berkgren on a continued series of stand-ups. But Corey Scott quickly takes the angle each time. Berkgren spins in, comes back in bounds and tries to step across. Oh, a nifty, nifty reversal move, but the points have not yet been scored. And now they are right on the edge of the mat. Now, wait a minute. Wait a minute. There were 2 points scored.
The referee's whistle is not working. I don't think the referee's whistle is working at the side over there, but Berkgren did get the 2 points. Pretty good move, Ben.
Oh, that was a nifty move. I tell you what, Corey Scott relaxed just a moment. He thought he was out of bounds. And now the whistle is firmly in position, but doesn't work when you blow it.
I tell you, both these wrestlers have a lot of strength.
On the stand-up, Corey Scott tried to put a headlock on Mike Berkgren in the yellow uniform. Berkgren out in front, 2-0.
Berkgren leads 2-0 here, as you can see. And he's in control on the top side. 25 seconds to go, Ben.
Berkgren moving off to the side, looking for the cradle, but simply controlling the body. Corey Scott just a little bit frustrated with his head down, thinking about what can I do to get out from under all of this pressure. Berkgren looking for a cradle, tries to trap that knee. Time expires here in the second period.
There you see Berkgren getting up, shaking it off, and a little slower getting up. Corey Scott of Plainville. Both these guys got to be tired. Berkgren looks like he's pretty well exhausted. Looks over at Coach Samuelson. Looks over again. Start on that top position.
On the stand-up move, Berkgren very forcefully powers Corey Scott back to the mat. It was not a slam, just a good, tough move on a Granby roll. Corey Scott trying to get around behind, but Berkgren able to counter the move. And now works into the crossface. Scott trying to step across. Berkgren hanging on, and we have a stalemate.
They did have a stalemate call.
The referee clapping his hands and telling these wrestlers to get with it. Things have slowed down here in the third period. On the whistle now. Scott tries to come in with a switch, with Berkgren with that upper body strength, powers him to the mat, working now with the head lever. The head right in the armpit, and now turns it into a hammerlock across the body. Berkgren controlling the arms, and now reaches in with the crossface. Ties up the opposite wrist.
That kind of ties a wrestler up in knots practically, doesn't it?
And the bottom wrestler carrying all the weight of Mike Berkgren. It's only a 2-0 count at the moment, so plenty of time for Corey Scott to get back in it. And he tries to roll through. Berkgren steps across. They're working near the edge of the mat, and Scott has a chance to get his own reversal. He's getting the elevation. Berkgren ties him up and spins around behind. Do we have an escape? We don't have the points awarded yet.
Yes, we do, Ben. Right now.
Okay, it is an escape. Time all of a sudden is a factor. It's 2-1, Berkgren in front, but time is a factor in the match. We're late in the third period.
Both these wrestlers pretty tired, Ben.
Corey Scott trying to duck under. Berkgren simply defending the lead. 2-1. We're down to 13 seconds. And a stall warning. A stall warning against Mike Berkgren. But we're down to 11 seconds. Berkgren backs up again. Tries to whip Corey Scott over, but he continues to back. Tries a trip. Comes in. Steps in. Can he whip him over? No! He comes up standing. Oh, it was close, and time is out. Time is out. Were the points scored? I don't think so.
Great action. Great action. Mike Berkgren is going to be the champion, and you can see Dale Samuelson, his uncle, is going to be a happy man. Berkgren tosses the headgear over. 2-1. Mike Berkgren with a win. There you see Berkgren, arm being raised by the official. Mike Berkgren walking over, and here it is, Ben, look at it. Final flurry.
I tell you, you see Berkgren trying a trip, and Corey Scott slips around behind. Berkgren almost lost it, came up standing, floats out of bounds, and saves the championship.
Boy, he really did. Let's go to the award stand to find out what we've got there. In the fourth place at 152 pounds, Tim Ham of Minneapolis. Consolation champion belongs to David Modlina from Ellsworth. Second place went to Steve Arnold from Immaculata. And the 1989 Kansas 152-pound champion was Brian Van Pelt from Oberlin. Wins it 15-7 and finishes the season with a 24-1-1 record. Brian Van Pelt of the Oberlin Red Devils. Ben, that last match at 160 was a dandy. Ben, I just want to say that right now, Lyons still has 2 wrestlers to go. Atwood with 101 team points. Plainville 99 cannot score anymore. Lyons has 2 wrestlers left. I think Atwood is going to win this team championship the way it would appear, and would surprise a lot of folks, I think.
Well, and it's interesting. Atwood has 2 finalists coming up yet. And we'll keep track of that score as we progress here. And currently we're at 171 pounds. Smith of Minneapolis, Harris of Lyons, and Harris is in the blue uniform with the triangular wedge on the side.
Donnie Smith comes into the match 25-3 for Minneapolis. Chad Harris comes in 27-2 for Lyons. Both with blue uniforms, kind of difficult to tell who's who in it.
Well, Harris does have the knee pads on. Chad Harris of Lyons with the knee pads reaches in and gets a single penetration move, but Donnie Smith counters, comes around behind, but does not have control. In this flurry of action, nobody gets control. They go out of bounds. I guarantee you, Chad Harris ditched it. He didn't like the feel of that situation. Donnie Smith, a success story in his own right in this tournament.
Really beating Wade Cran in the semifinals, winning 8-6 in overtime.
No points scored in that flurry. It is 0-0. Well into the first period of action. £171. The action has slowed down, but they're taking a breather after that flurry. Harris pushing and Smith pulling. They go out of bounds together late in the first period. Harris gets good penetration, a counter move by Donnie Smith, and he scores 2 on the takedown. A pure muscle move, just enough quickness, and Smith is out in front 2-0 with time expiring in the first period.
We're at 171-pound championship right here, and you see the official, as Donnie Smith, it would appear, will be in the down position to begin the second period.
Chad Harris comes on top side, trailing 2-0. Once again, Donnie Smith down. He leads 2-0. Harris hanging on in that stand-up try. Reaching for a far side cradle, drops down on the leg. Smith tries to turn in, had an idea on a power switch, and goes back to his stomach. Harris trying to hook up a far side cradle and then grabs on with a crossbody ride. Smith on the bottom has that 2-0 lead. Harris trying to figure out what he'll have to do to score points. Smith stands up and turns in, comes back up standing. Harris now does hook up a cradle, but he can't do anything with it from that position. Smith tries to face. They're spinning around and whirling out there. Smith working off the bottom. Continues to lead 2-0, but he's having trouble scoring from the bottom side. Harris from Lyons working top side, momentarily had a cradle hooked up, and Donnie Smith from Minneapolis slowing down in the late stages of the second period. Smith slowly powers himself up into a standing position, drops right back down to the mat. Harris has an idea with the crossface. Takes a look at the cradle situation, and Smith counters by stretching the leg out. Harris still trying to hook up the cradle, and Smith thinking about it also. Does Harris have it locked up? I think he does. He does have the cradle locked up. He's got a chance to turn, Does he have time? The clock is a factor. No, time expires here in the second period. And Harris, after fishing for the cradle all that time, finally got it hooked up rich, but it wasn't soon enough to score.
Ran out of time, and so they go to the third period. But this has been a close match, just as many of the others have been. Not as much flurry in this match. Not as much action.
Donnie Smith, top side. The Minneapolis senior has a 2-0 lead, putting a little more motion in, but Chad Harris showing signs of being tired. Harris with his head down, now comes to a 4-point. Smith hangs on with a tight waist and looks for a cradle himself and passes it up. Now Smith trying to fish for a bar arm, has it hooked. Has the bar arm hooked and looking for the opposite wrist. And Harris decides to bail out and heads for the edge of the mat. But Smith had a good bar arm hook. You could see it as they went out of bounds.
All right. Still a 2-0 score, Ben. It's just been one of those low-scoring matches.
Smith in the lead, and Harris working off the bottom. And Smith having trouble, but they go out of bounds. Slow motion at 171 pounds. A lot of muscle and a lot of thinking going on out there. Smith out in front, 2-0.
Well, Lyons currently in the team standings in 4th place. Would appear to be out of the picture for the team title.
Smith able to power Lyons to the mat, even though they're working, or Chad Harris of Lyons to the mat on the edge of the mat. Chad Harris trailing 2-0, thinking it over as he walks back to the center circle.
Hasn't been able to put together a scoring move in this match. Been kind of frustrating for him.
Good set out, turn in series. Chad Harris makes the move on the bottom, but we're way into the third period. 36 seconds remaining on the clock, and it's ticking down, and Harris still trails 2-0.
Thing about it is, as you see the clock wind down and tick down, Smith has just been everywhere at the right time. Just move for move.
Using his superior strength. We're down to 15 seconds. Harris trying to step across, and Smith simply countered the move. Harris reaches up and grabs the head. A headlock won't work, and time is starting to be a real problem.
And so Donnie Smith from Minneapolis has won the championship at 171 pounds. A low-scoring match, 2-0 over Chad Harris from Lyons. The champion, as he raises his arm, Donnie Smith of Minneapolis. He knew what he had to do, Ben, and he got it done.
Well, I tell you, it wasn't fancy, and it wasn't real pretty, but it was championship wrestling.
We'll be back with more right after this. Champion Ron Turley of Garden Plain. Second place went to Chad Harris of, rather check that, that's 171. 160, Mike Bowles of Lyons was 4th place. Paul Cooter of Stockton was 3rd. 2nd was Corey Scott of Plainville, and Berkgren of Oakley was the champion. Now we'll get to the action at heavyweight, and it involves Jeff Vrbas of Atwood taking on Ryan Bornholdt of Lyons for the title at 189. And Ben, we might be able to say it here, but I think we're pretty sure the Atwood Buffaloes, coached by Steve Woody, is going to win the championship.
Well, I tell you, Jeff Vrbas really got surprised as Ryan Bornholdt moved in quickly, scored early in the first period for the takedown. We're still in the first period. And I'll tell you what, when they came to the edge of the mat, they wiped out 2 coaches and 1 official over in this corner. But back in the middle for more action. Vrbas on the bottom side, he trails 2-0.
Vrbas, by the way, is a junior, the brother of Mark Vrbas, who had such a successful career at Atwood a couple of years ago.
Vrbas in the red and white uniform, and Bornholdt putting the leg right on, is trying to turn Vrbas, and he's about to get the job done with a bar arm and a crossbody ride. Vrbas trying to keep that shoulder up so that it does not break the 90-degree angle. Bornholdt, a very muscular, strong wrestler, really putting the pressure on Vrbas. Still no exposure points. The referee now begins the count, and Ryan Bornholdt has already scored 2 near-fall points with the crossbody ride. Vrbas isn't finished. He just doesn't like this position. And Bornholdt, the senior from Lyons, 27-1 coming into the state tournament. Rich has a good ride going, as we say. When you have a pinhold on, it's the best kind of a ride.
And it's also one you don't have to break.
The score is now 4-0. Bornholdt out in front, but we're still in the first period.
Well, Vrbas for the Atwood Buffs, the juniors, we said 22-1. Won his semifinal match over Chad Dito of Harrington, 13-0. Bornholdt pinned his opponent, Bringer of Oakley, in the semifinals. 3 minutes and 7 seconds into the match.
Vrbas working top side, tries a counter move, comes across. He almost gave up 2 points, but oh, what a move for Jeff Vrbas. Ryan Bornholdt putting on his own move. Has a 4-0 lead, but the Atwood Buffalo wrestler in the red uniform working top side is looking for points of his own. Vrbas puts in a near side half Nelson. Now breaks the arm down. Coach Steve Woody in the red trousers and the black shirt, looking on intently and hollering instructions to his wrestler. Ryan Bornholdt undefeated on, no, actually he has 1 loss. Made a good early move in the first period and scored 4 points on it.
Bornholdt 30-1 on the year. Both these wrestlers kind of went through and breezed into the championships.
Vrbas looking for the half Nelson. Now allows Bornholdt to stand up. Vrbas ties up the arm. Trips Bornholdt back to the mat very forcefully on his stomach. Vrbas looking for the bar arm on the near side.
Well, he's going to have to try to come up with some type of a pinning combination to try to get some points on the board for the Atwood Buffaloes. Vrbas.
Vrbas has the bar arm in, but Bornholdt is able to get over to the edge of the mat, and Vrbas is going to have trouble turning him and keeping him in bounds. We have a stall warning, and it is against Bornholdt, who is in the lead 4-0. Time expires here in the second period, and Bornholdt from Lyons has a 4-0 lead.
All right, and Bornholdt will be in the bottom position. Vrbas appears to be kind of eager to get going.
Remember, Bornholdt has been warned for stalling. Vrbas with a power far side half. Now works with a crossface. Fishing for the cradle. Can he hook it up? Once again working with the crossface. Jeff Vrbas has to come around. And Bornholdt now in a 4-point stand-up. Vrbas brings him back to the mat, but trails. Vrbas in the red uniform, trailing 4-0.
Kind of a whip-over move, Ben.
Had that been in the center of the mat, he could have scored points with it.
Vrbas appears to be a little fresher, maybe, than Bornholdt, but Bornholdt knows the score, and he knows his position.
And that score, Rich, is 4-0 Bornholdt.
He's tying his shoe there, catching a little breather, maybe, leading 4-0. Vrbas is going to be to a point where he may have to gamble.
A near side hit in the ribs.
Well, the
Cradle
warning
situation developing, Rich, but there has been a penalty point. There is a penalty point awarded, and it goes to Jeff Vrbas. The score is now 4-1. And so Vrbas still alive in the match.
Still alive, but a long way to go, trailing 4-1.
Bornholdt tries a switch. Vrbas counters, drives Bornholdt over to the edge of the mat. It's a good position for Bornholdt. He has been warned. He has been penalized once for stalling. And the referees, you can tell, are thinking about it again. Less time is beginning to be a factor for both wrestlers, of course. Vrbas trails 4-1. Bornholdt is simply laying on his stomach. Vrbas with a quarter Nelson. We're down to 17 seconds. Another penalty point. It's 4-2.
The next one would be 2 points, right?
Well, but will they penalize this late in the match? And Vrbas steps across. He tries desperately to get the half Nelson in, but can't get the job done. And we do have a final score.
Ryan Bornholdt of Lyons, a 4-2 winner over the young junior Jeff Vrbas of Atwood. So Bornholdt from Lyons, a champion for the Lyons team. Bornholdt, a senior, finishes his career, Ben, a record of 31-1. Good match. Vrbas just couldn't get back.
Well, I tell you, it was the flurry in the very beginning. Bornholdt, remember, got the takedown in the first period and then scored a near fall, and all of those 4 points were enough to win him the championship.
We'll go over to the award stand in a moment. 4-2 the final at 189 pounds. Donnie Smith at 171 was the champion, but let's check the award stand. In fourth place, Wade Crine of St. Francis. The consolation champion, Ron Turley of Garden Plain. Second place finisher at 171 will be Chad Harris of Lyons. And the 1989 171-pound champion for Kansas, 3-2-1A, is Donnie Smith. Donnie Smith from Minneapolis, Kansas, a 2-0 winner in the championship match. Well, that brings us to the final match of the 1989 state tournament action. That in the heavyweight class will feature Scott Urban of the Atwood Buffaloes and Novak, Steve Novak of Belleville.
Well, it's interesting, Rich. These are not what you call full-size heavyweights. Urban and Novak are both undersized. They're not the biggest heavyweights we've seen in the tournament, but they are evenly matched size-wise and weight-wise.
Novak is a junior from Belleville, 20-4 on the year. Urban from Atwood, a sophomore, had a great tournament, 21-5. Steve Woody up off the bench. You see him there to the left upper corner of the screen, shouting instructions to his wrestler, Urban.
Novak does have the knee pad on, and that's the way we'll be able to keep track of him because they both have red uniforms.
All right. Scott Urban of Atwood and Novak of Belleville.
Scott Urban steps across, and he loses his balance. And Steve Novak counters and scores a takedown with the counter move. The top wrestler, Novak, with the new the blue knee pad, has a 2-0 lead. Urban puts a move on, and he scores a reversal. It's 2-2.
He kind of had that thing set up, Ben, and was looking for that opportunity.
He almost gave up a near fall in the situation, but it is tied, and Urban has wrestled from behind several times in the tournament. Urban from Atwood is the top wrestler at the moment in the first period. Urban tries to get exposure points, but the buzzer saves Steve Novak.
Well, the first period comes to an end, and we're tied at 2-2. The Atwood Buffaloes, the new 1989, the new Kansas 3 2-1A state champions. First Northwest Kansas League team to win a state championship in St. Francis in 1984. And the first time in 3 years that a mid-continent team has not won. 2 years ago, Phillipsburg. Last year, Plainville.
Urban on a sit-out series tried to hook an elbow and roll. Urban on the bottom. Steve Novak from Belleville in control on the top side, and behind at the moment, standing behind, that is. The match is tied up 2-2. One of the officials tossed the wrestling helmet off to the side as it has come off. Urban now tries to stand up, working off the bottom, isolating the arm and trying to peel an arm loose. Tries a roll and comes across and steps across and scores. Does he score right on the edge of the mat, or do they go out of bounds? He does score, but it's not a reversal. It is an escape. So it is now 3-2, Urban of Atwood in the lead.
Kind of a wild flurry there. But Urban with the advantage now, Ben. Again, he is wrestling without the knee pad. If you're watching, it's kind of tough to tell.
Good snap down move for Steve Novak. He's looking for a chance. Urban, with his head down, is not in a good position, and he ditches it, gets out of bounds. A good move for Scott Urban. And Steve Novak was really putting the pressure on. He trails 3-2. Novak with the blue knee pad and the red, or rather, excuse me, the green ankle band. We have a stall warning, and it goes against Urban. Late in the second period, Urban out in front 3-2, but he has been warned for stalling.
Coach Steve Woody off the chair and shouting instructions to Urban as he came back to the center of the mat.
Oh, it was close. You know, Steve Novak made a good move. He keeps getting Urban's head down. Was able to run around behind. Had he been able to bring him to the mat, could have scored the takedown, but still trails 3-2.
Novak won his first match 3-1 over Greg Babcock of Hoxie. Then he defeated Brian Nixon of Eureka 8-4. And then in the semifinals defeated Shad Jacobs of Phillipsburg by a score of 8-5.
Urban, top side, third period. With a 3-2 lead, it's not a comfortable lead. Novak able to come to his knees. Urban tries to drag him back over. Gets too high, and Novak comes around behind, scores the reversal, and now Novak has the lead, 4-3. Urban standing up, trailing by 1. Novak powers him back to the mat, right on the edge. They go out of bounds. Just a brief break in the action.
Urban kind of leaned over to hear what Steve Woody had to say, hoping it might give him some type of an advantage here.
Steve Novak, using his quickness, does a good job of following Scott Urban, and Scott Urban tries to roll under, but he almost put his own shoulders on the mat. In a 4-point stand-up now, Urban will try to isolate an arm and peel one hand loose. We have a stall warning, and this time the warning goes against Steve Novak. So each wrestler has a stall warning. The next warning will actually be a penalty point, and the score is right, 4-3. Urban tries another standing roll, comes back to the opposite side, and Novak is able to follow Urban around in every single move.
Urban again looks over to his coach Woody. Woody now standing up, getting a little anxious, got to stand up behind that chair. Steve, a very emotional type of coach. See him standing there behind Reinhardt there in the corner. Steve Woody.
Urban down on his stomach. Can't make the move he's looking for, but Novak doing a great job riding now with the bar arm. We're down to 23 seconds. Time is a factor, and Novak puts Urban over on his shoulders. He's got him down on his shoulders, and he put a scoring move on late in the third period. We're down to 8 seconds, and the new champion is getting ready to be Steve Novak of Belleville.
He should get 3 more and will win 7-3. Steve Novak from Belleville, only a junior, Ben. He did a good job. There you see his hand being raised to the crowd here at the Coliseum in Hayes, Kansas. Novak going over and jumping on his coach, elated to come away with a heavyweight championship. Cheerleaders and everybody else crowding around at the scoring table. Urban over on the meantime talking to his coach. And the 1989 wrestling title championships have kind of come to a close here. And Steve Novak at heavyweight really elated. Let's go to the award stand for 189 pounds. The weight class, 189 pounds. The fourth place winner was Nate Brown of Silver Lake. Consolation champion Ryan Batchman from Lincoln. The second place finisher, Jeff Vrbas of Atwood. And the 1989 champion at 189 pounds, Ryan Bornholdt of Lyons. Bornholdt of Lyons, the 4-2 winner over Vrbas of Atwood. So we've had an exciting 1989 championship. The 1989 heavyweight champion, Steve Novak, defeating Urban of Atwood in the title there. Fourth place went to Chad Jacobs of Phillipsburg, and Chad Stanley of Oberlin captured the consolation champion at heavyweight. An interesting and a very good wrestling championships here in Hayes, Kansas. The Atwood Buffaloes, who went up into the matches, into the championship matches in front, held off the competition.